we're going to make a really simple app that will say hi to us. It's going to have a text input and a button, so we can type in some words and have a very, very short conversation with the app. So it's going to be a single view app. I'm going to open up Xcode, click on single view app, and click on next. Project name, Greetings App, and hit next. I'm going to save this in a folder. You might also want to pick where on your or computer you want to save this folder. I'm going to start at the main storyboard, and I'm going to grab 3 objects from the object library. I'm going to grab a button, and I'm going to grab a label, and I'm going to grab a text field. And so if you notice, the label and the text field and the button are stacked on top of each other. But in order to organize them better, I'm going to use something called a stack view. There's vertical stack views and there's horizontal stack views, and you can switch a horizontal stack view to a vertical stack view, and you can switch a vertical stack view to a horizontal stack view. But today we're just going to start with a vertical stack view, and what this will do is it will just help us organize our 3 components. So one way you can put these objects into the stack view is just to grab them and drag them where the stack view is on the screen. The other way to do it is to grab them up here in this pane over here, and I want to put the button underneath the label. So as long as the blue line's indented like that, it's going to be in the stack view, and it's going to be below the label, just where I want it. And now I want to put the text field in between those two. So again, I'm going to drag it and put it right between the two. And then all 3 elements will end up in your stack view, so it helps organize them. And if you highlight the stack view, you can move it, all the elements around at once. Alright, I have my 3 elements organized, but I want to change the way it looks a little bit because they're kind of all squished together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the stack view, and I'm going to go over into the inspector pane and click on this attributes inspector, and I want to put a little bit of space in between these elements. So maybe about spacing 10 in between these elements gives them a little bit more room. I think for the label I want the text to be a little bit bigger. Just going to change it to hello for now. Make the label a little bit bigger, and I want it to appear in the center. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some constraints to this stack view. And that will help spread it out and get it in the spot where I want. So I have highlighted stack view, and I come down here to this TIE fighter down here. It looks like a TIE fighter from Star Wars, and you're going to click on that. And I think I'm going to do 50, 50, and 50. So I'm going to pin it to the top, to the left, and to the right side by about 50. I'm going to add those 3 constraints. And you can see what it does is it stretches out this text field a little bit, and it kind of gets my elements where I want them. The last thing I want to do is I want to adjust this button here, so I'm going to highlight the button. I'm going to change it to maybe submit. And I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger. And I think I'm going to give it a background color. Maybe a blue color, and then I'll change the color of the words. And the text color, I guess I'll make white, and maybe I'll make it bold so that it's easier to see. I'll change this to custom, and I'll change regular to bold. That looks a little bit better. Maybe if I made it just a little bit larger. Alright, we want to connect these three objects to our ViewController. So I'm going to click on the Assistant Editor, and I can see my ViewController and my storyboard at the same time. And I'm going to control, click, and drag the objects that I've added onto my ViewController. So I'm holding down Control. I'm going to click on the label. I'm going to drag it to about line 12 or 13. I'm going to let go. I'll give it a name, greeting label. The UI label, the connection is weak, and I'm going to connect that. I'm going to grab the text field, and I'm going to hold down Control. I'm going to click and drag that over below my label. And I'll call that text field. It's set to a UI text field. The connection is weak, and I'll connect that. And the last one, the button, is going to be an IB action. It's not going to be an IB outlet, so I'm going to put that below ViewDidLoad. So I'm going to put that on line 21 or 22. So I'm going to hold down Control, click on the button, and drag it over here. I'll call that the Submit button. I'm going to change it from type any to UI button, and it's going to be touch up inside, and I'm going to connect that. In this app, we want the top label to greet the user and ask what their name is, and then we want the user to be able to enter their name with the text field and the button, and then we want the app to say to greet the person using their name. So it's a very simple greeting app. What do you think the steps are that we need to take in order to get that done? So pause the video for a second, think about what needs to happen for our code, and then after you've had a thought about it, then you can hit play again. Alright, you are back, and I hope you had a think about what the next step might be. And where I am going to start is I'm going to start in ViewDidLoad. So I'm going to go into ViewDidLoad, hit enter a couple times, and I'm going to make some comments. So whenever I'm commenting, I'm using these two slashes here. I'm going to say we need to change the label. We called that the greeting label. To what is your name? And then we want the user to enter in some text into the text field, and then we want them to be able to submit that with the button. We'll submit text field with button press. And we also want something else to happen once they submit their name. We also want to change the label to greet the user of the app by their name. So what we're doing right now is we're just making some comments about what we think some of the steps might be in this app. Alright, I want to put in some text in this text field just so that whoever is using the app knows that this is a text field where they can enter text. So I'm going to go into the attributes inspector. I'm going to highlight the text field right here. Let me open up that real quick. Make sure your text field is highlighted. Go into the attributes inspector. And right down here it says placeholder text. I'm just going to say enter text here. So when you do that, it'll appear light gray, and so who's ever using the app knows that they can enter text there. I just think it's easier for them. I'm going to go back to the ViewController. Let's go take care of some of these steps. So the first one is we want greeting label, greeting label.text. We want the text in the greeting label to be, and we need a quotation mark there because we want the Xcode to see this as a string. What is your? And that will change the greeting label of the text when the view loads. And we can press play on our simulator just to check it and make sure. Alright, what is your name? Looks great. Our next step is we are going to get the text field and we're going to save it to a variable. So one of the first steps we need to do is we need to create a new variable. So I'm going to call that variable name. And I'm just going to have it equal blank. And if I hold down Option and I go over name, I can click on name just to check the data type, and the data type is string, so that is what I want. I want a variable called name, and I want the data type to be a string. And so with that, I can set what's in the text field to name. So name equals text field.text. And then we want to change the greeting label to greet the user. So I might copy this right here, paste it down here. And I'm going to say greetings. And if we do a slash parentheses name parentheses, this name will change to like a green color, and what we're doing is we are putting in the value of our variable into that sentence. But if we look back up here, we have an error, so let's check what's going on. Aha! So we are assigning this text field to a name, and Xcode is saying, well, how do you know there's any value in the text field? One way to fix this is to force unwrap it. So by putting an exclamation mark, what you're doing is you're promising Xcode that there will be some value in text field, and then you can assign it to name, and then you can greet that person. So let's run our app and see how it is doing. What is your name? My name is Dalton. Greetings, Dalton. So that worked for us, but I want to try it again. And this time I'm going to hit the submit button without typing in a name and just see what happens. So when I hit submit and there's no name in there, it just says greetings, comma, and we don't want that to happen. So let's put some checks in place that are going to prevent that. So I think one way to fix this would be to, I'm going to put it right here, if text field.text is equal to nothing, basically. We probably want to remind the user to enter a name. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to paste it down here. And I think I'm going to say, please enter your name. Okay, greeting label.text to please enter your name. So if they didn't enter anything in the text field, I want to remind them to enter that. And then I'm going to put an else there. So if it is not, if there's something in that text field, then we can assign that to the name. Put my curly brackets in. I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to paste it down here. Alright, the last thing I want to do is I want to cut where we assign greetings with the name to the greeting label text. I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to paste it right after this else. So basically, if there's nothing in the text field, we're going to remind the user to enter their name. But if there is something in the text field, we're just going to greet the user with whatever they entered in that text field. And let's run it again to check our app to make sure it's working the way we want it to. If I hit submit without entering anything, it says please enter your name. So it's reminding us to enter our name. And if we enter a name, it will greet us by our name. So that is working pretty well. I want to show you one other thing that might be happening with our simulator. So let's see. I want to use the software keyboard. So when we enter a name and hit enter, the keyboard doesn't go away. So our app is working the way we want it to, but the keyboard never disappears. So we will have to figure out a way to get the keyboard to disappear. The last step we're going to take is just to get rid of that software keyboard when we hit the submit button. So the way we can do that is text field dot resign first responder, and that will get rid of the software keyboard after we hit the submit button. And let's test it just to make sure. And the keyboard goes away when we hit the submit button, just as we wanted. Okay, so this is a really basic app, and we are done. Thanks for watching.